All right, what is going on, guys? Sorry, I'm a few minutes late for our 7:30 live coaching call type of a thing with kids. Put the kids down typically at around. We're in Arizona Mountain Time. We put the kids down typically around we start the process at 6:50, 7-ish. Usually they go down pretty quick, but it was a little bit of a later time this time, so I apologize that I'm a few minutes late. But today, I'm super excited because last Tuesday, we talked about what I call the model, right? Where it's kind of like the self-coaching type model where you have circumstances that control your thoughts, which control your emotions, which control your actions. Therefore, that controls your results, right? That leads into your results. And now I want to kind of dissect and go a little bit deeper into one of those, which is emotions. And obviously we'll talk about how they all influence one another. But the reason that this is so important is because we're faced with so many things throughout the day: good, bad, stressful, relaxing. Hopefully there's a good balance of both as you kind of go through. And so sometimes it's really important to have tips and tricks and keys and principles and kind of tools in our tool belt to be able to deal with those types of challenges and things. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So if you're watching live, do hashtag live. If you're watching it on replay, do hashtag replay. Just helps to get to more people in the group, kind of spread everything going around. So let's dive a little deep into it. So the reason that this is titled Dealing with Emotions is because I feel like that's where we're all able to. That's not true. Not we're all, but a great place to get to is being able to recognize the emotions that we're feeling, right? And we talked in the last video that emotions are just vibrations in the body, or emotions are the chemical response to a situation that our minds have thought about, right? So a tiger is not inherently scary, but the tiger eating you or attacking you or whatever, right? That your thought about the tiger is what triggers that emotional kind of flight or fight response, right? And so the emotion is typically one word: scared, anxious, angry, that type of thing. When you start describing those emotions, then those are your thoughts about the emotions, because thoughts are more descriptive and longer in sentences in nature. So, but dealing with emotions. So ideally we would have a circumstance, and then from that circumstance we think certain things, and that dictates the emotional response that follows. And ideally we could kind of cut it off at between the thought and the circumstance, that gap, right? Because that would be the most effective. But a lot of times we naturally think something, or it moves really quickly and it gets into the emotional state before our brain kind of has a chance to logically dissect it and think, okay, should I be thinking this? Should I be feeling that way? And that type of thing. And so being able to first off recognize the emotion that you're feeling, anxious, happy, scared, joyful, being able to recognize it, and then realizing if that is benefiting you or not benefiting you. So, for example, if you experience some type of grief in life, passing of a loved one, something with your spouse, something with your job, in this life, there's so many different things that we deal with on a daily basis. And sometimes grief can overflow us. And there are some instances where it is not only okay, but beneficial to feel that emotion, even though grief isn't necessarily it's not an enjoyable emotion. It's not something that you want to feel on a regular basis. But in certain circumstances, it would be better for you to feel that emotion to its fullest instead of being resistant to it And instead of immediately being like, okay, well, and trying to like dissect it and go through it and be like, okay, well, why am I thinking this way? And what should I be thinking instead? And how can this help me? And kind of attacking or resisting it. Kind of the better way to go about it would be to first recognize that you're feeling that emotion. And then genuinely allow yourself to feel it. So, for example, I was working with a woman who, while working together, she found out that her dad was diagnosed with cancer, and the odds were pretty bleak for him. It was kind of at the beginning of us working together, and then towards the end of us working together, he actually passed away. And so we actually talked more about that and kind of coached through that than we did, necessarily the nutrition and all of that stuff, which is obviously, those things are super important. But her focus was a little bit more on the grief that she was feeling and all of those things that then, would trigger some of the emotional eating and that type of thing. And so one of the things that I had her do was not be resistant to that. Let herself feel it to its fullest. Because a lot of times when we are resistant to certain emotions, they will continue to come back at us until we take the time to genuinely feel whatever it is that we are supposed to feel in that moment. And so, for instances like what she went through, we kind of put like a game plan together where she was going to take a period of time and grieve and genuinely feel these emotions and let it overwhelm her and, kind of overtake her for a period of time. And then she would work on, not necessarily moving past it, but work on kind of building past it and recognizing with love and compassion and patience that those emotions would, continue. It would be kind of like a wave, if you will, where it's crashing and then it kind of pulls back and then it's crashing and pulls back. And then eventually she would be able to, overcome it and move on, but allowing herself to not be resistant to the emotion, but actually genuinely feel it. In those types of instances are the only way that we can actually get past that and then be able to go through the model and recognize, okay, I felt this way because of these thoughts and this circumstance, and kind of be able to walk through it. And I think having that type of emotional intelligence and being able to deal with certain emotions can make our life, that goes hand in hand with what we're doing in the program of bettering ourselves physically, working on that and bettering ourselves, emotionally and mentally. They go hand in hand, because you can be kind of so focused on one that you can neglect the other, and vice versa. But if you can focus on both at the same time, then overall you're going to have just so much better results, if that makes sense. And so for other types of emotion, like, anger or jealousy or, input any other type of emotion, a lot of times it's really beneficial, instead of just trying to attack it head on, or you're feeling one way and trying to force yourself to feel a completely different way and totally flip it, go from that emotion, first recognizing it, realizing that, okay, it's not serving me and I want to feel a different way. So recognizing it, recognizing that it's not serving you, wanting to feel a different way, and then trying to go to more of a neutral emotion or neutral thoughts, instead of, for example, instead, like, if you have kind of more of a negative mentality of, I don't necessarily love myself, I don't love the way that I look, I don't love the way I do this, I don't love it, right? So sometimes we get into kind of that negative mindset, instead of trying to go from that to like, ooh, I'm the best person in the whole world, I love my body, I'm the greatest dad, I'm the greatest person, like trying to go from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other end of the spectrum is unrealistic. So instead, going from, oh, I hate my body, instead of going from that to, oh my gosh, I love my body, you could go from, oh, I hate my body to, I have a body, right? That's a very neutral thing. Okay, and then take that even further. With my body, I am able to, express love for my kids. I am able to go to work and provide for my family. I am able to, and name all these things that you can do with just that neutral emotion or that neutral thought. And then once you get there, you can kind of take it to the next step. And so that's kind of a very tangible way to deal with our emotions and eventually build past them, is to recognize them, to feel them in the fullest, really allow yourself to feel that emotion, recognize how it feels, where does it start, what does it do, try to describe it, recognize if it's serving you, if it's not serving you. And if it's not serving you, recognize a more neutral gap and how you can get there. And then once you kind of make that a little bit more concrete, then do it again of like, okay, so now I'm feeling neutral. How can I get to a place of feeling good or a more intentional way of thinking and thoughts, right? Because then once we can move to that positive, that intentional thought process, that intentional emotion, then we can take intentional actions towards our goals or towards our results. And if you remember last time, we talked about, it goes circumstance, thought, emotion, action, result. And most of us know what we want our results to be. But sometimes we feel like maybe we don't know how to get there. A great thing to do, like I said in the last video, is write it down. So you have your results, you write down what you want your results to be. The next step up is going to be your actions. What actions do you have to take consistently on a daily basis to get you those results? Okay, now what emotions do you need to feel to elicit those actions? Okay, typically it's, motivation or happy or joyful or doing it out of gratitude, right? We want to choose positive emotions because that's going to carry us long term, right? You can never hate yourself into changing. You can never hate your body into changing. You can never hate your personality into becoming a better person, right? So you want to have the right emotions and the right vibrations and chemical responses to get there. And then what thoughts should you tell yourself on a daily basis that elicit those things, right? So things like, I am capable, I am worthy, I am worth this investment, I am going to try my best, I'm going to, having all of those positive, I'm grateful for my body, I am grateful for everything I'm able to do, all of those positive things, then it all trickles down, right? And the circumstance is always going to be the same. The circumstance is neutral, but it's our thoughts, emotions, actions that dictate our results. So hopefully you guys found that useful on how to deal with certain emotions, kind of that step-by-step process. If you do have any questions, throw them in the comment section below, and then I can answer them throughout the week, as well as if you have anything specific you want me to do a live on next week. I would love some input. Anything that would be most valuable to you would be awesome. But I hope you guys have a great Tuesday night wherever you are at in the world, and I will talk to you guys next week.